Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with quick chicken couscous. That's right. Not only is this very fast and easy, it's also beautiful, delicious, and incredibly versatile and will work with almost any ingredients. And why this stuff isn't way more popular is one of the great culinary mysteries. I mean, once you have everything prepped, which doesn't take very long at all, we're talking about having a truly gorgeous meal ready in about 10 or 15 minutes. I know it sounds too good to be true, but it is. And to get started, we're going to measure exactly 1.5 cups of whole wheat couscous into this bowl. And contrary to popular belief, couscous is not a grain. It's actually a very tiny whole wheat pasta. And by the way, there's actually two types, regular and quick cooking, or instant. And we definitely want to use the quick cooking kind for this. And then to our couscous, we will add some salt, as well as some freshly ground pepper and a few shakes of cayenne, followed by 3 tablespoons of olive oil, which is one of the big keys to the whole operation. And what we'll do is take a spoon and give this a thorough mixing until each and every one of those little tiny grains of pasta is coated with the oil. And once we're 100% positive that's been accomplished, we will finish by leveling off and smoothing out the top. And just in case you're not familiar with how this works, all we need to do to cook this, quote unquote, is to pour in a cup of boiling liquid, usually some kind of flavorful broth, at which point we cover it, wait 5 minutes, and then we eat. And that's it really is that simple. Which reminds me, make sure you tear off a piece of foil big enough to cover this bowl, since as soon as we pour in our hot broth, we are going to need to cover this immediately. So make sure you have that ready. And that's it. Once our couscous bowl has been prepped, we can move on to a totally optional step. And that would be to season the chicken breast on both sides with salt, and then searing it over high heat in a little bit of olive oil, in the same saucepan we're going to use to boil our broth. Oh, and if you're going to include something like red onions, which I am, and you want to give those a little bit of a head start, we will bring those over to the stove as well. And all we're going to do here is give this chicken breast a quick sear, since meat that's browned always has a little more flavor. But as you'll see, it's also going to form a little bit of a fond on the bottom of the pan, which means even more flavor going into our broth once we heat that up. So we'll go ahead and sear that first side for about 2 or 3 minutes, at which point we will toss in our onions, and we'll saute those for a few minutes while our second side browns. And no, I have no idea what that mysterious slash is. Okay, I didn't get anywhere close to this with a knife, so I'm guessing whoever at the factory took off the skin must have nicked it. Or at least that's what I hope it was. But anyway, once we've browned our chicken breast for a few minutes on both sides, and we've taken the raw edge off those onions, we'll remove everything from the heat, and we will transfer that into a bowl to cool before we cube it up. And I could have left the onions in the pan, but I wanted you guys to get a great look at that fond, which is that beautiful caramelization that happens when you sear something in a pan. And that, even though we only cooked our chicken for a few minutes, is going to provide a lot of extra flavor. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and transfer in that 1 cup of liquid I mentioned earlier, which in my case is a nice rich chicken broth. And then we'll follow that with whatever vegetables we're going to include, which for me is going to be some diced zucchini, some sliced green beans, some diced sweet red pepper, and then a little bit of freshly sliced green onions. And the reason we want to cut this stuff nice and small is because we pretty much want this stuff tender by the time our broth reaches a boil, which is only going to take a few minutes, as you will see. So that's looking good. And at this point, we'll go back and cut up our chicken, which I'm going to do by cutting it into strips lengthwise. And then we'll turn it and cut across into like 1/2-inch pieces. And I should mention you can also use thighs for this, and it will work out just about the same. Or, which is even a more common way for me to make this, you can use cut up leftover cooked chicken, which obviously saves you a whole step. So keep this in mind the next time you roast chicken if you have some leftovers. This recipe is definitely something you should be eating the next day. And that's it. Once our chicken's been cut up, we will add that along with our onions to the rest of the ingredients, at which point we are ready to finish off our quick chicken couscous. So we'll go ahead and place this over high heat, and we will wait for that to begin to simmer. And while we do, we can toss in any other spices or seasonings we feel like, which for me was a little touch of smoked paprika, plus a little bit of turmeric, which not only fights every major disease, it's also going to give our couscous an even more beautiful color. Right, we used to call that poor man's saffron, when it was okay to use expressions like that. But anyway, we'll go ahead and stir that in. And like I said, we'll wait for this to start simmering. And once it does, we'll give it a quick stir, and then maybe wait 1 more minute for it to come to a full boil. And by then, because we diced our vegetables small, and our chicken was also in nice small pieces, by the time this is boiling, everything should be just barely cooked. So once boiling, we will pull this off the heat, and we will safely but very quickly dump it into our couscous. But we are not going to stir. Right, we're just going to toss it in, quickly spread it out, and then wrap it with foil. Okay, immediately and very, very tightly. And then as soon as that's wrapped, we will set our timer for exactly 5 minutes. And then once our timer rings, we'll go ahead and unwrap this, and we will toss in some freshly chopped parsley and or the fresh herbs of your choice. And then we'll take a spoon and give everything a stir. And because every little piece of couscous was coated in olive oil, as we break this up while we stir, every little particle of couscous will separate, and it will take on a very light and fluffy texture. And of course, before serving, you have to taste and adjust for salt, as it often needs another pinch, which mine did. So I went ahead and added some, stirred it in, and gave it another taste. And then once we're happy with that, we'll go ahead and serve it up. And then I like to garnish with some crumbled feta, but a nice garlicky yogurt sauce would also be beautiful. Or maybe something like a tzatziki. So as usual, final garnishing is up to you. And I ended up finishing mine with some chili flakes, a little more freshly chopped parsley, and a final drizzle of olive oil. And that's it, our quick chicken couscous is ready to enjoy. And that, my friends, for something that only takes a few minutes to prep, and literally 5 minutes to cook, really does make for an incredibly impressive meal. Right, that couscous is satisfying and filling, while at the same time being fairly light. And because our chicken pieces were only briefly cooked, they should be moist and tender. And what I love about this recipe besides everything is that we can do this with so many different kinds of vegetables. Okay, as long as they're diced small or pre-cooked a little bit like the onions, they're going to work perfectly in this. So I really do hope you adapt this to your tastes. I mean, you are after all the Dr. Seuss of your couscous. And this really is a perfect dish for personal variations and adaptations. Oh, and speaking of being versatile, this is wonderful hot, magnificent warm, fantastic at room temp, and you can even chill it and bring it to a picnic as a salad. Which in that case, I like to splash in a little bit of vinegar, or maybe squeeze in some fresh lemon. And it really is delicious chilled. But anyway, that's it, what we're calling quick chicken couscous. If you're ready to take a little bit of a break from pasta, rice, and potatoes, I think this makes for a great change of pace. But whether you need your pace changed or not, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.